So what we're going to look at today, I just wanted to use this to introduce to you why it might be important to consider comparative studies, to see how things that are seemingly different, something as different as painting and engineering or architecture and music, talk about why it might be important to take these things that look different on the surface, but find the ways in which they are actually related. We're going to do that first by reading these selections from Ken Robinson. I'm going to pass them out, and then you'll get into groups of 3 or 4. When you get into groups, I ask that you just sort of remain in your seats and just sort of turn to face each other. What you're going to do, passing out selections from this book, is that you're going to take turns reading these different passages that are marked. I've marked which passages to read on these pages. You're going to take turns reading them to a group, and then we have some discussion questions to sort of start talking about what Ken Robinson has to say about creative thinking and why it relates to us, why it is an important skill to develop. And so now that you have it, just sort of turn, and you can turn your desks also. Turn to face each other, make small groups of 3 or 4, no larger than 4. You can take turns reading the selected passages, but they should be read aloud. And then at the end, I'll put some discussion questions on the board, so in your small groups you can start talking about some of the ideas that he's putting forward and talk about whether I agree or disagree, why these might be important. Do that for about 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll bring it back. And here you can have this. There's a song about there. We got to get out of this place, and of course, we got to get out of this place if it's the last thing we ever do. And Springsteen said every song he's written is effectively that. Do you need another one? Is that what you're missing? And so he wrote a lot about teen romance. You see it in Morning Run, Wild Beans, and Street Shuffle, about kids who have love and hopes and dreams. That's all they need to run away. He sort of counters that with Darkness on the Edge of Town. He starts looking into the sort of darker side of lower middle class existence. And right before he's about to make his breakthrough after The River in 1980, right before he's about to sort of make his breakthrough as one of the great rock icons, one of the great electric sort of rock and roll icons, he cuts this album, Nebraska. And we'll talk about that in a second, because what I want to first do is distinguish tone and mood. Because I was looking over your literary quiz. Is it good for them? Holy, does it turn out well? Was able to win a battle. If George were the character speaking in Atlantic City, do you imagine it would turn out well for him? This big trip, this big move. Finally, he's got to be in Atlantic City. Elijah.
So it seems like it would go like with that book. Like,
Huh?
if this book was like a movie, which it is, I think this song would go great with that.
Mm-hmm. Why? Yeah. Why?
I don't know. It's just they kind of like go along together, I guess, because it's their road. Like, I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more in my head than I can speak it. So.
Well, that's terrific. Say.
It's just facts, so it's not like wisdom, it's just knowledge. And so like this creativity thing, it's like deeper thinking and like moving past just facts and being able to make your own connections with the world and being able to be like a better citizen and a better member of the world because you can understand it better and you're more wise, I guess.
Terrific. You made the important distinction that the important point that he points out, which is that the idea is to move beyond sort of factual and technical knowledge, but to actually grasp broader concepts, bigger ideas, to get a deeper understanding of things. Darsh has something that we'll get to a little bit.
Yeah, kind of divides it by like in business.
It's terrific, yeah.
How he said that's really not true.
It's not
How
saying
everyone can-
that the arts are more important than anything else because of the creative studies involved, but that they are all equally important in terms of developing creative thought, in terms of seeing the ways, as a couple of you mentioned, seeing the ways that these different disciplines and contents of study, but they seem different, they're actually deeply connected. Do you ever find yourself in another class, do you ever find yourself saying that's like this thing I learned in another class or on your own, making these connections between or among different content, different areas of study? Andrew, you're nodding yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Oh, like lots of times, lots of the literary things that are going on here, they root back to like the classics, like I'm in Latin class, so we learn about.
Syllogism in words.
It's-
And we do the
everyone
same
can
thing
do
in
it.
math / numbers.
Yeah, are you referring to the deductive intro where
Yeah.
A is B, B is C, therefore A is C? Yeah, exactly. It's a mathematical equation, but Mr. Talumak introduced it to you this year in the context of developing a thesis, of writing a paper. Right? And that's a terrific observation to make. You know, people often can't imagine how a math class, a literature class, or an AP, or an honors 10 English class, what they could possibly offer each other. But in fact, we see that again,
People are made to be creative, some people
from
aren't, like in business.
and making connections. He talks about creative thought involves breaching the boundaries between different frames of reference, bottom 158, going into 159. Some modes of thinking dominate in different types of activities: the oral and music, the kinesthetic and dance, and the mathematical and the physics. They often draw on areas of intelligence simultaneously. Mathematicians often talk of visualizing problems and solutions. Dance is closely related to musical understanding. Visual arts draw deeply from spatial intelligence. The composition of music is often informed by an implicit understanding of mathematics. You've all addressed that idea in a few different ways in this discussion. We see how Da Vinci used this, right? Da Vinci's a terrific example of thinking creatively, of how his sort of genius understanding of architect, of engineering, of anatomy, and he did design aqueducts for Rome, you know, to travel water supply to supply water to the city and things like that. He did develop these things. He developed early designs for the tank and the helicopter before they had the technology to do these things. And it was partly his remarkable artistic abilities that allowed him to record things that the world had never seen before, things he was just making up in his head.